All right, shalom, shalom, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. Thank God it's Friday. A lot of y'all been working hard throughout the week, so I'll praise to the Most High God for a break, for a rest. Some of y'all are coming into the Shabbat, so Shabbat shalom to y'all. Um, some of y'all had your Shabbat early in the week or whatever, but I'll praise to the Most High, man. I want to get into something. I want to get into some things. I want to check some things out, and let's look and examine some things. Um, Doing my daily studies or whatnot, and just comparing, diving into the law. And I encourage everybody to do this, in this walking in this faith and this truth, we meditate on the scriptures, on the word of God. And we tend to have to read things over and over again, and we get new understanding every time we read certain things in the Bible. No matter what it is, we could have read the same scriptures 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. You're going to get a new understanding, new revelation, and you're going to connect new dots every time, just slowing down, examining. So we're going through the Old Testament again, starting from the beginning and coming into the law, just realizing some things, going back and forth from the law and the Gospels, and you get a comparison and you be able to put things into a different perspective. So what I want to get into tonight is I want to get into the kind of the spirit of the law. I want to get into some precepts, cover some precepts dealing with the spirit of the law, and just kind of how the law itself is fluent. The law is moving. We serve a living God, and the law is a reflection of our God. And it is living, it is moving, it is not stagnant, it is not still. The law is not just black and white and to the letter. It's fluent and it moves, right? Because times change. We deal with different times, but the Bible is forever relevant. So let's kick it off. Let's get into some of these precepts. Let's make a love story with these precepts. All right. So this is the book of John, right? This is John chapter 4. Christ dealing with the Samaritan woman at the well. Let's see if I can kick this out of the way. Get that out of the way. All right. John 4 and 23. So he's talking to the Samaritan woman, just for a little context. And he's talking to the Samaritan woman about worship and where they'll be worshiping, how they'll be worshiping. Oh, my bad. Just for a little context. So verse 23, it says, "But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him." Father seeketh such to worship him in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, just off the top, before I get into these precepts, because precepts line things up way better than I can, and they speak for themselves. And the precepts give off an initial wisdom and understanding that us ourselves can feed off of. But just worshiping God in spirit and in truth, going into this lesson, is that how we worship God, it's a vibrational thing, right? It's a motivational thing. It's just something in us that moves us in a certain manner or a certain way. And in truth is not only just in that spirit, in that feeling or in that vibration that we have, but not, it's the truth. It's based off prior evidence, which is the law and the prophets, the testimonies, right? The reason that we know the reason that we worship God and how we keep in the Passover, because it's written, right? Not necessarily in the way exactly. Some people, when I'm saying this, I want to be clear. Some people make their unleavened bread like this. You know, some people decorate their house like that, but it's the spirit of the Passover, and it's true, right? It's the 14th day of the first month, 15th day unleavened bread. You're keeping the Passover, no matter how you decorated your house. You decorated it with ornaments that represent the spirit of Passover. That's in spirit and in truth. No matter how you did it, somebody else could have did it different, but it's all in spirit and it's based off the truth, right? So, all right, let's get into the precepts. But that's important though, you know. Gotta worship God in spirit and in truth. Let's get into what that's going into. Now, this is the book of Galatians, chapter 5, verse 22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, and faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Because you can find these things in the law. You can find love in the law. You can find joy in the law. You can find peace, having peace with one another, be long suffering, be gentle and meek, goodness and faith. You can find all these things in the law. Now, is it black and white to love? Do this, and that. Yeah, the law does tell us how to love each other. It gives us it gives us a prerequisite. Yes, of course. But the law gives us a spirit of how to do it. You know, if you love your neighbor, you will not steal from him. Okay. Now that you love your neighbor, you would not covet you would not covet his things. Now that's like a header on a paper, or that's like a title. No covet, no steal. But that goes into other things too on how you deal with your neighbor. Like if you love your neighbor, then you would not disrespect them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's certain things that those things are just headers. Those things are just the forerunner for a long list of other things. But the law doesn't necessarily tell you these other things, but it's the spirit of the law that you understand through wisdom on how to handle your neighbor, on how to be long suffering, how to be gentle. All of these things are of the law, because against them there is no law against them. They might not be written in the law black and white, but when you study the law, you read the law, you understand these things are there. Verse 24, and they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. If we live in the spirit, let us also walk in the spirit. So if you say you live in the spirit, then you're going to walk in the spirit, but you're going to walk after the manner of these things. You're going to walk according to the law. You're going to walk after the spirit of the law. It says, let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. You know, in the law, it says that if your neighbor loses something, if your neighbor loses some money or something, and you just so happen to catch them losing, you just happen to catch one of the children of your people drop $20 in the gas station, and dude, you might not know his name, but you know where he be, you know where he hang out, you know he come to this gas station after work or whatever. He dropped the 20, he left out of the store, you couldn't catch him. Hold that 20 till you see him again. Does the law exactly say that verbatim? No, I think in the context of the law, it was talking about animals, right? It was talking about if your neighbor or one of your fellow Israelites loses some livestock, it said you got to hold down that mule or that donkey, either give it back to him, because you know where he stay, or if you don't know where he stay, he come looking for it again, hold it down to him until he come looking for it again. But that's just how we apply the spirit of the law in today's time, when we don't necessarily deal with livestock like that. Niggas ain't out here losing their chickens and you having to hold their chickens down. You understand what I'm saying? But the law is our wisdom. It teaches us how to move. It teaches us how to operate. And from the law as well. And from the law, we are able to develop a spirit and what I mean by that is the longer you meditate on the law and the longer you practice the law, the longer you understand the law and the characteristics of God, you begin to form your life around it. You begin to model your life around that spirit. It's what moves you, just like I said earlier, like a vibration. It's what moves you. It's a vibe. When you're around the Israelites, you get a vibe. What you get peace, you get love, you get fellowship, safety. It's just a vibe because it's the spirit behind the law that moves us, and that spirit is wisdom. This is Deuteronomy 4:6. It says, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this is a great nation. This great nation is a wise and understanding people. So while the world was in darkness and while the world is trying to figure it out, we have a God that is dwelling with us. Hey, Shalom, King. Shalom, shalom. On the sons of Yah, shalom. We have a God that is dwelling with us, that is giving us guidelines and instructions. So we don't have to figure it out. But what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to take the wisdom that God gave to us, and we were supposed to develop off of that. That, because just like I said, the law doesn't. We have some people today, and they're following the law black and white. And what I mean by that is, if it says it in the law, then that's what they hold to. But if it don't say it, then they don't hold to it. What I'm saying is that may be an incorrect application of how God intended for the law to be. God, just like the 10 Commandments, God can only write so many commandments on stone. You got some people who are theologians or whatever, Bible followers, Bible believers. They say, well, God wrote the 10 Commandments on the stone and put it inside the Ark of the Covenant. So that's only what's important. Now, God not finna be writing all these hundreds of laws out on stone. Just like God knew what we was going into today, He knew the things that we would be afflicted with today, or the things that we would be enticed to do today that would be against His will. He didn't write it all out. Like, example, the law doesn't have to tell me, thou shalt not smoke crack. Thou shalt not smoketh of the crack rock. I don't have to have that to know that. It's already understood that crack is the substance of it is witchcraft in its conception. And it's horrendous for the body. And I have an example of what it does to people. And that goes for any drug, using wisdom. Even the pharmaceuticals, some of those drugs should not be dealing with, period, because it's so harmful and toxic for the body. But I don't have to have a law to tell me, thou shalt not smoke crack rock. It's the spirit behind the law. The law saying, do not be a drunkard, do not defile thyself, do not be a sorcerer. And that spirit moves me to understand through wisdom. I don't need to be diving into certain things of today that are not in the law. right? We can get some more examples. Let me see. For example, when Moses killed the Egyptian servant, when Moses killed the Egyptian, that's an Exodus 2. Exodus 2. Exodus 2 and 11. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid in the sand. Moses slew an Egyptian and hid his body in the sand. Nobody had to tell Moses to defend his brother. Like Leviticus 19 and 16 was not written. This is Moses walking in the spirit of the law. Let's go to Leviticus. This is Moses moving in the spirit of the law. Hey, Salakia, if you comment, if you're in the comments, forgive me. I'm as I'm sharing my screen, I'm not going back and forth into the comments. I'm just teaching in the spirit. Like you say shalom, and I don't say shalom right away. Forgive me. This is Leviticus 19 and 16. It says, "Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor." Hey, Moses saw his neighbor or his fellow Hebrew, his brother, being smitten. And he went and saved him. It was not murder. Moses was upholding the law in the spirit, understanding the love that he had for one of his brethren. And that's love. You understand what I'm saying, right? So the law has a spirit in itself. It is our wisdom. And the Bible describes wisdom as being a spirit. So the law is a spirit in itself. Following it, it ingrains something in us, right? It ingrains something in us. Dang, boy. So Psalms 119 and 105. It says, "Thy word is a lamp unto the word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." So following the law and keeping the law, it's a light to us. It's a light to our path. We understand where to walk. The scriptures also say, "How can a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed to thy word." So the law cleanses us. The law aids us. The law is to our benefit. And when we walking in the spirit of the law, then we kind of elevate. Understand what I'm saying? We elevate and we understand more. And it's gonna all tie in too. As we move in, and then I start giving an example, right? But there must need be wisdom among the law that's already wisdom for us. Like, to understand the law and to properly interpret the law, you already have to have wisdom. The law itself is wisdom, but to break the law down, you have to have wisdom. All right, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 18 and verse 19. This is Jethro speaking to Moses, who was weary from judging the people all day. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, gave Moses um he gave Moses a model so that Moses could break and divide the burden amongst the wise of the children of Israel. It says, hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties and rulers of tens. Now see, this is where you get the judges from. Man, there will be rulers over cities, rulers over villages, rulers over towns, and rulers over fenced places. It says, and let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. So for them to be able to bear the burden and to be able to judge, meaning they have to have a good understanding of the law. They had to fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. They had a spirit already in them, and these men were wise, elders, who Moses directly taught them ordinances that they must walk in what they would do. And the small matters they would judge. They would judge the small matters. And it would be based on how one could interpret the law. Moses would have to handle the heavier matters. Things that came to be that were more difficult to interpret and know what to do, right? For example, Numbers 15. Numbers 15, right? We know the law says, thou shalt do no work on the Sabbath day. That's black, that's black and white, that's plain. Thou shalt do no work on the Sabbath day, but one has to interpret what is work. Right? It says, and while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. And they found him gathering sticks, brought him unto Moses and Aaron, unto all the congregation. They put him inward because it was not declared what should be done to him. They didn't just stone him on the spot, right? And this is what I'm saying. Spirit of the law. Like, yeah, the law says that thou shalt do no work on the Sabbath day. So they had to put him in war. They had to hold him, put him in jail for a trial, so they could see what should be done to him, to see if he actually break the Sabbath. And the Lord said unto Moses, the man shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones without the count. It had to be understood the intentions of this man and what he was doing. It had to be understood, calculated what kind of sticks. Was he gathering twigs? Was he gathering branches? In my opinion, I think the man was gathering branches. I think he was using the Sabbath day to get ahead out there gathering branches for firewood or whatever. Doing what was unlawful, extreme, and exerting major force and work. But it wasn't just, hey, it looked like you was doing work, we're gonna put you to death. No, there's wisdom in the law for the law that's already wisdom, if that makes sense, right? The law itself is wisdom, but interpreting the law, you need extra wisdom. Let's get some examples. right. But first, let me get into the judges. So now it came to, this is Ruth 1:1. So it came to pass in the days when judges ruled. So the judges ruled Israel. And if you read the book of Judges, then you'll know that the judges weren't always, they didn't always judge correctly, right? Every tribe had their own judges. Every tribe had their own rulers, and it was based upon the interpretation of the rulers to be able to interpret the law and to give the judgment according and accurately. It says, this is Judges 21:25. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes, and that's including the judges. That's why when you get to if you're from the tribe of Reuben and you want to go visit some real close friends that you have in the tribe of Naphtali or something, then you gotta be you're in the jurisdiction of those judges. So a matter that they would have judged in a certain way in your tribe, they might not have did that, or they might not have had that interpretation in another tribe. Right. Let's go to you can see an example of this in the New Testament in the Gospels, right? Matthew 23:1. Then spake Yahushua to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. So the scribes, which are the scribes and the lawyers, the Pharisees, the people that were studying the law, that were writing the law, were writing down the law, interpreting the law, the top school of thought, they sat in Moses' seat, which means what? They directed the people according to how they saw the law. It was based upon their interpretation of the law. And we already know the battle between Yahushua and the Pharisees was that they didn't have the proper interpretation in how they used to try to trap him with things. But he said they sit in Moses' seat. Whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not after their works, for they say and do not. Let's get in, I want to get an example. Get an example of this, because I'm tying this in with the spirit of the law. Things are not, you have to, things that are not written in the law, that's of the law, has to be incorporated into today's time. And things that are written in the law, black and white, they have to be interpreted right. Let's talk about the Sabbath. I think that's a pretty good topic. Let's talk about the Sabbath. Exodus 20:8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates. I was listening to a conversation, right? And brothers were talking about if you had an ox and you led your ox out of the stalls to go get water to drink, then that was considered work. That is a sin. This is the viewpoint of some brothers. That is considered a sin. But that's not the spirit of the law. That's not the spirit of the law. How is your cat? So it's the Sabbath day, and that means that none of your animals, none of your livestock can have anything to eat or drink. It's the Sabbath day. They can't have nothing to eat or drink because it's work to go feed them. That's not the spirit of the law. And this is what I'm meaning by the interpretation of work. So what is considered work? Let's see how the Pharisees, let's see how they out of this, and the people at that time thought of this. Let's go to John chapter 5. John chapter 5 and verse 8. Let's start at verse 8. Yahushua said unto him, now this is the man, this is the lame man who could not walk, who sat by the pool of water that the angel stirred up so he could get in it and be healed, but he could never get there, right? Yahushua came and healed him. Yahushua said unto him, rise, take up thy bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked on the same on the same day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, it is the Sabbath day. It is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. Now, see, this is the leaders of the people are the Pharisees, the scribes, and the lawyers. Now, this is their interpretation of Exodus 20 and 8 about the Sabbath, and this was including work. But is it work to take up your bed? Is it work to not be able to walk for years and years and then be healed and then take up your bed? And this man probably had like a little kindergarten cot, to be real, like a little cot, something that probably fold up a little bit. It wasn't that extreme. All right, let's see what Yahushua had to say. All right. Afterward, Yahushua findeth him in the temple and said unto him, behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Yahushua which made him whole. And therefore did the Jews persecute Yahushua and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day, because he healed on the Sabbath day and made a man whole. Yahushua is walking in the spirit of the law. Because how can you love your neighbor and treat him like you want to be treated, but not do that on the Sabbath? So it's like you can do that. You can love your neighbor and treat him like you want to be treated any day but the Sabbath day. Because if it was me and I had a condition of that sort, I don't care what day it was, heal me on the Sabbath. That's the spirit of the law. But the law, black and white, says do no work. But it's the interpretation, it's the spirit and the wisdom behind a man on how you would interpret this, right? And we see that the Jews at the time, that they're in error. Because this is crazy, honestly. It's crazy to think that. What is the violation here? What work was done? This verse 17, Yahushua answered them, my Father worketh hitherto and I work. A little bit lower in the text, it said that he can do nothing unless his Father do it. So would they now be accusing the Most High of working on the Sabbath? Let's get that. Then answered Yahushua and said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he see of the Father do. But what things soever he doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise. So the Father working through Yahushua healed this man. So if it was a violation and it was a sin, would the Father had allowed this man to be healed? I don't think so. I don't think the Most High moved like that. All right, let's get another example. All right, this is the book of Mark, chapter 3. Start at the top. And he entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there with a withered hand. And they watched him whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. Dang, that's crazy. You steady watching this man just to see if he's gonna heal somebody on the Sabbath day, so you can accuse him of what? Doing work. But is that work? Is that work? Some people, say don't cook on the Sabbath. Cooking is work, or lighting, kindling a fire. You can't turn your, some people teach don't turn your stove on the Sabbath. Don't crank your car. Don't turn on heat. That's kindling. But is it? Because to profane the Sabbath is to do laborious work, but that's not laborious work. So it's just and when I'm saying the spirit of the law, I'm saying that the law is written, something is written in the law black and white, but there's a spirit behind it that's supposed to give you the understanding of how to apply it. It says do not do any work on the Sabbath, but healing is not a work. Healing is not laborious work. Healing is not you exerting all your energy and efforts and using the Sabbath to your advantage to get ahead, to, you know what I'm saying? Like if I want to cut grass on the Sabbath, because I just want to go ahead and do it because I don't have nothing else designated for me to do that day. And I just want to go ahead and cut. No, I would be profaning the Sabbath, because now I'm using the Sabbath. I'm using the Sabbath toward my advantage to do work. I'm out there sweating in the hot sun, pushing a lawnmower across half an acre or whatever to cut some grass. Like, that's too much. You're doing too much. But I'll read that again. Mark 3:2. And they watched him whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. And he said unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. And he said unto them, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life, or to kill? But they held their peace. Because it's like they knew they were wrong. Because they not walking in the spirit, not in long suffering, not in love. Like you don't have no love. Back to Galatians 5. You don't have no love for this man with the withered hand. You didn't care about his withered hand. Verse 5. And when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he said unto them, stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. He said, to save life or to kill. I can think of an example. To save life or to kill. There's an example that I want. That's in the First Maccabees. I'm gonna get that. 1 second. Type it in. And it's in the Apocryphas. Oh, I gotta. All right. All right. Make sure I'm on the right tab. All right. This is First Maccabees 2:31. Now, when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. Now these are the Israelites that rebelled against the king's commandment, the king of Greece, the Grecians, and they're fleeing from the city. This is the Maccabees or forming their rebel army or post or whatever you want to call it. But the Grecians and those that with them came and made war on the Sabbath day. This is how they handled it, though. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid, but said, let us all die in innocency, and earth will testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people. Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned from them right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. It ain't gonna be none of us left. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. So they decided, they had one perspective. They had one perspective of do no work on the Sabbath day. And they listed, defending yourself as a work that should not be done on the Sabbath day. So that was the perspective in the culture at the time that they shared, but the law is fluent. The law is flexible. It's not stagnant and still. And the law is not meant to be used that way. That was not the spirit of the law. It was not meant to be used that way. That's why through wisdom, they understood that, hey, we're going to have to fight for our lives and our laws against the heathen, even on the Sabbath day, or else we'll all be murdered, and there will be no rebellion. There will be no hope. There will be no righteousness, no slither of light. It'll just be continuous wickedness in Jerusalem. And I think that was using wisdom, right? The same wisdom that's needed to interpret the law and understand the spirit behind the law and why these laws were written. The perception was one thing, but our initial perception isn't always what's accurate. And sometimes, and we have to I don't recall any account before this account where the children of Israel were faced with battling on the Sabbath day to make them to give them the exposure and the experience passed down to say, hey, our forefathers fought on the Sabbath day because they understood. Like I believe this is the first time that this has happened. So through wisdom, they had to make a change. They had to make a resolution of how they thought and their perception. And I think that was just the spirit, right? That was just the spirit of the Most High, because God is a God of the living. I think King David said in the Psalms, I can't praise you in the grave. So they decided to fight, right? All right, let's bounce over. Let's get another. Let's get another example. I'm gonna get one more example. All right, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 19, and I'm gonna start at verse I'm going to start at verse 3. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him. I saw that one. I saw the top. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these sayings, he departed from Galilee and came to the coast of Judea beyond Jordan, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? It says it's lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause. So let's see where they getting this from. They're getting this from the law. What is that? 24. All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 24, and verse 1. And it says they were tempting him, but this is their interpretation of it, because even in the gospel, in the account, that this is their perception and what they believe that the law is actually saying, because the disciples who were present and of that culture and knew the Pharisees' interpretation of it, they said it's not good for a man to marry if he can't divorce only for the sake of what Yahushua said. So Deuteronomy 24:1, it says, when a man have taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass she find no favor in his eyes, because he had found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorce and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. Let's look at this word, uncleanness. All right. Nope, it's not wrong. All right. This word uncleanness is H6172 Irva, and it is a nakedness, a shame, an indecency, improper behavior. The Strong's definition, it says that it's a nudity, literally, especially I don't know what that is, or figuratively, a disgrace, nakedness, a shame, uncleanness. Every cause is not a shame or unclean. It says uncleanness, a shame. That's a defilement. That's not subjective, right? That's not subjective on however you feel. So the law actually doesn't say for every cause. So go back to Matthew 19:3. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it unlawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And he said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God have joined together, let no man put asunder. So from the beginning, it was not so. There was not supposed to be any uncleanness or defilement. There was not supposed to be any fornications or spiritual or physical. There was not supposed to be any type of hardness of heart against man and wife, grudges and beef. And they about to say this next. I think I've just kind of jumped ahead. They said unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so. It was not supposed to be a man versus wife feud. It was not supposed to be the woman having issues submitting to the man. It was not supposed to be a man not loving his wife. It was not supposed to be a lack of compassion. It was not supposed to be a lack of love and faith amongst one another. You were supposed to be able to reconcile easy. From the beginning, it was not so. From the beginning, he made man and wife, and you were supposed to be one flesh, not two. One flesh. Does a man hate his own self? Will a man cut off his own flesh from his own body? Or will a man correct himself? Or will a man love himself? Or will he nurture himself? That's how you're supposed to be with your wife. Right? This is just another. See how Yahushua is coming with he's coming in the spirit of the law. The law says any uncleanness to put her away. But Yahushua understands what the Father meant when he told Moses that. He understood what the Father meant when he told Moses that. He understood the spirit that's behind the law. And that's what he's teaching. All right, this is John 6:43. He's teaching them the spirit behind the law. Know that the law says something in black and white, but you have to understand the spirit of the law and of the Most High to be able to understand what it's saying and give the right interpretation. Basically, if you finish reading in Matthew 19, Yahushua was saying that the interpretation and how the Pharisees went about handling that law, they were causing the people to err. It was a whole bunch of adultery going on. Men just getting rid of their wives for every cause, and then another man picking her up. And these things were not solidified, and these things were not right in the eyes of God. God didn't stamp that divorcement because it wasn't for uncleanness. It was subjective on what you thought was unclean. I don't like the way she just had that baby and she just blew it. Like, nah, I gotta get rid of her. I don't like the way she drives. I don't like the way she don't park the donkey back in the stable. She always leave him in the front yard. Nah, she gotta go. Like, nah, it's not acceptable. So Yahushua is giving you the spirit of the law, and what's to being able to understand what's written in black and white. Right. So this is John 6:43. Yahushua therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves, talking to the Jews. No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they shall be all taught of God. Every man, therefore, that have heard and have learned of the Father cometh unto me. Because Yahushua understands what the Father wanted. He understands the will of the Father. He said, none of you have seen the Father at any time. And when you see the Father, you see me. Or if you see me, Salaki, if you see me, you see the Father. Verse 46, not that any man have seen the Father, save he which is of God, he have seen the Father. So Yahushua is coming to teach you the accurate interpretation of the law and the spirit of how to apply that law. The law has to be handled with wisdom. The law itself is wisdom. The wise are able to understand the interpretations of the law and to handle it with care and accurately piece it together, put it together for the benefit of the people. Yahushua had an issue because he said that they were leaving out the judgment, they were leaving out mercy and grace. These things should not have been undone. You should not be trying to catch people and see if they breaking the Sabbath by healing people. Did you forget that the law also called for mercy and peace and grace and long suffering and love? Those things had to be done. That's the spirit behind the law. So I just wanted to bring that out. I hope that you can understand, what I was saying, putting that together, understanding the spirit of the law versus, what's written in black and white. Sometimes we can get carried away on what's written in black and white and not understand why it was written and understand how it can benefit the people and how it's supposed to be applied. And we even struggle today because the Bible was written so long ago, even though that the Bible is relevant for all ages, with modern technology and all of the things that we have, we even have to lean on God and pray for more wisdom for him to give us and more understanding of that spirit to apply these things today. So next time you look at the law, slow down, understand what is written, understand how it is written, even go into the language to see if you can get a better understanding. And, I implore you to do that to increase your studies and so that you can live more fruitful and have more understanding. Pray for that understanding and for that wisdom. But this is Brother Sa'ar with Ahon Zion and Shalom. Until next time.